their name or something. Now we'll bring it back.
Okay, I think we'll get started. I want to thank everyone for coming today. Our main topic is going to be on Venmo and Zelle for money transfer, and Paul Ebert's going to give it. But first, we'll cover a few club items. Our next MACSIG meeting is July 18th, and we will not have a July general meeting because we have our picnic coming up July 26th. Is it July 18th? Now I'm confused.
Uh-oh.
What does it say on there?
Must be in the next slide or two.
Yeah, it is July 18th.
July 18th. Excuse me there. So our picnic is July 18th.
It's not even a Wednesday.
And then our next general meeting after that is August, and that'll be on Internet TV. If you haven't been to the picnic before, these are some pictures from last year. It was the first year that we were at the Battle Creek Picnic Pavilion over there, which worked out real nice. Lots of happy faces and lots of people there and lots of food. So we certainly encourage you to stop by there. Here we've got the right date, July 18th, Battle Creek Park, 4:30 to 6:30, $10 per person. There are some sign-ups in back if you haven't signed up yet, or you can send them in after the fact to Jim up here. We have a prize drawing, we have our dinner, and we have our election. We have burgers, veggie burgers, brats, beans, potato salad, dessert, a whole bunch there. And we do want you to RSVP by July 11th with your payment. And as I mentioned, the Battle Creek is just a little south of 3M here. Our officers, Jim Holman up front there is our president. Linda Brown, Linda's not here, is our vice president. Paul Ebert, giving the presentation today, is our membership secretary. Mike Griffin is our treasurer and MACSIG. Stan Miller is our secretary. Andrew Pertusi is our communication coordinator, and I'm Tom Kreitzer. I'm a director at large. Members old and new, you can pay your dues to Paul there. Reminder, if you do change your email, make sure and notify us, because that's where we send out these notices and other things. And if we have a bad email, it's not going to get to you there. If you have any suggestions for topics, talk to any of the board members. If you'd like to volunteer to present on any hardware or software, could be something you use at home or at work. And if you don't want to present, we do have a monthly eBites newsletter. You can write a 1 or 2 sentence or a long article about something of interest to you and share it with the rest of the group. Website link is in the emails that we send out. It has the past meetings and slides, so if you did miss any or want to review an old meeting, you can go out to the website and you can pick that up. We also have our deal sections. Our newsletters are out there. Any club questions before we get to the main topic? I'll let Paul come up here, and Paul's going to be talking on Venmo and Zelle money transfers.
So I don't speak all that often for the 3M PC Club, but when I do, it's all about money. I'm not sure what that's a connection with my membership duties or what. But anyway, I'm going to talk about this. I have a kind of a long introduction, and then you'll hear my story as to why I'm doing this presentation. So, 2 pages of introductory caveats. By the way, I have 90 slides, but do I need to stay here for the camera? So, okay, so don't wander. You don't want me to wander.
No,
okay. All right. Okay, I will stay here then. I will bolt myself here. Anyway, yeah, I'll try not to read my slides, even though I have 90 of them, because you can read faster than I can. I will get into some details. Ask me questions if you would like, but if my question is answered in my presentation, I'll defer it. So yeah, one challenge is I did not want to give away all my username and passwords for my bank account. So I had to be a little bit, so I won't be whipping out my smartphone and demonstrating this live. It's all screenshots. Interestingly, I'm going to say some things, bad things about these products, but I really do believe in them, and I use them. And I'm going to take a survey, 10 minutes or so, to see who is using these things. So we'll see who is using them. And okay, last page of caveats. So my goal is to get you to use these things, Venmo, Zelle, or something similar. It's nice to know, but it would be really fun if I can convince you that you should be using these things. There are similar products, Venmo and Zelle. They do approximately the same thing, but they also have their differences. So I've tried to be careful. This is for Venmo, this is for Zelle, but if I don't say it, it's for both of them. Okay, I'm not necessarily an expert on this, and you'll see my story a little bit later. But I'm going to make what I believe are factual statements. If anybody knows that, hey, that's not right, he's full of it, and you may raise your hand and say, I think you better check your facts. But otherwise, I think I've got this pretty much correct. I'm for sure a Windows Android user. Somebody was asking me this morning how to use their Apple smartphone. I couldn't even help them. But what I say on these products should work for Apple. Huh? Oh, of course. Yeah, so these products are designed for both Apple and Android, of course. But, yeah. Then if they didn't, they would have a big problem, right? Okay, I have two introductory videos. Both of them are from Zelle. By the way, I believe it's pronounced Zelle, as in sell, which is odd because you're not supposed to sell stuff with Zelle. I was impressed with the production values here of these videos, way better than Venmo. So here we go. This one is called How Money Moves Around Town. Try it again. Okay.
This is good. Really good. Totally worth like that. That's right, I know you're traffic. Let me get the bank really fast. Bang, that's like walking, just paying with Zelle. You know what you're talking about, dude. Wake up, what's the big deal? Has anyone even heard about Zelle?
Use it all the time, baby. It's been treating me well.
Like what?
That's a big thing. Yes, that's my bank. Good, baby. Move aside, Zach.
Y'all know about Zelle?
Sure do. I use it every day.
Hey, dog, fast.
How
many more apps you guys? I don't know.
It's lots of things now. Probably right on your phone.
Hold it up. Let me take a second to figure out what I'm doing. You tell me Zelle is for everybody. Keeps money moving for students and parents, slackers and makers, movers and shakers, and safe and available for almost all takers.
That's right, baby.
Then why am I walking to the bank? And why are we all rhyming?
Introducing Zelle, the new way to send money from your banking app.
Very clever. Okay. Then the second one is right here. So that was just an introduction, but this one is, we'll cover a few details.
Zelle is the new way to send money. We're different because we partner with leading banks and credit unions, making it fast, safe, and easy, raising the bar on security and fraud detection, and making money flow quickly from one person to the next, moving between bank accounts in minutes, not days. Here's how Zelle works. Say you want to pay Jen back $5 for the ice cream she just bought you. First, head to the Get Started page on ZellePay.com and see if your bank or credit union offers Zelle. If you're like over 85 million other Americans, you can access Zelle directly through your bank or credit union. Just go to their website or mobile app and register with your email or mobile number to send money. If Jen is already registered with Zelle, the money will arrive before your ice cream melts. If she's not, she'll get a message explaining how to collect her money. If Jen's bank doesn't offer Zelle, she can download the Zelle app, register with her email or mobile number, and enter the debit card she wants to use. Because she's new to Zelle, the first payment may take a few days. It's a security feature that helps keep your money safe. After this first transaction, money will arrive in Jen's bank account in minutes. Jen gets her $5, you both get ice cream. Zelle. This is how money moves.
All right. So I hope you appreciated those. Look at my, go back to.
Your alt tab, go to your other screen.
Yeah.
The PowerPoint that's open.
Oh, that one. Okay, so you saw both of those videos. Okay, so this is how my presentation is organized. Five topics, and here we go. I have again long introduction, and I will cover a few things in the introduction, and then get into some more details later. Okay, so what they are: electronic cash transfer among people you trust. So you take out your smartphone. You're at the movie. You need to pay them $5. You can pay that person $5 or $2,500 with just your smartphone. Trust. I'll say the word trust a dozen times in this presentation because you don't want to use Zelle or Venmo with somebody that you don't trust. Here's the direct description from one of their websites. Send or receive money for people you trust. Basically, you know these people and you know where to find them. If something does go wrong, you can go see them. Okay, some examples. You can see the examples there, and they mentioned them in the video. But basically, you're talking about paying your friends for simple things. I thought this description was a millennial kind of a description. Most of us either argue about, no, I'll pay the lunch bill. No, you pay yes, you can. But anyway, and I'm not sure how long it's been a while since I've split a cab fare. But anyway, and none of us here might not pay rent, I don't know. But anyway, my sense is millennials will tend to use it more, but we can use it too. We can learn from our kids, right? Okay. Yes.
You just mentioned that I do have a place that I went out and they pay me through the Venmo.
Excellent. So yeah. So instead of a check, use Venmo. And you trust your renter, or if you don't trust your renter, you know where your renter lives, and you can go find your renter and say, hey, it didn't go through, etc. Okay, so replacement for checks. In the bad old days, we used to carry a checkbook, but I don't carry mine anymore, and I suspect you do either. Checks are not accepted. They seem to be not trusted at stores, and apparently for good reasons, because you can write a check and then on a non-existent account. Also, replacement for cash. So most of us carry a wallet. We have a certain amount of cash in there. Are we headed for a cashless society? Maybe, but I don't know. And there's also true that sometimes cash is easiest. So if I'm trying to pay somebody $5, I'll often just whip out my $5 cash. But I'm told the younger generation doesn't carry cash. Maybe. Anyway, you can use instead of cash. Okay, and then I'll talk at length about things that Venmo and Zelle are not, or things that you don't need. So you don't need a point-of-sale device. All you need is somebody else with a smartphone or a computer tablet. So this is not tap to pay, just a smartphone. Yeah, so Apple Pay and Android Pay, and I'm not an expert at these either, and I'm soliciting somebody who knows more about these to either talk about them or write an article about them. But I sell hot dogs at US Bank Stadium. to pay for my grandkids' music lessons, and I see people walk up with their smartphone, and then they tap to pay the device there, but there's no trust involved in that. They've got their beer. There's no question that they've got their beer, and then they simply have to pay for it. So, but anyway, these are not tap to pay. I want to make that clear. Just me to you, between two people. And they're also not, two things that they're not replacements for, and even three that they're not replacements for. They're not replacements for credit cards. Credit cards have their purpose. I use my credit card online all the time when I'm paying for stuff on Amazon. And so therefore, if I don't get my merchandise, I can contact Visa and say, I didn't get my Visa, would you please reverse that charge? And they usually will. Also, they're not a replacement for banks. You need a bank. Let's see, a couple other things. They're not a replacement for money. I'm not talking about Bitcoin here either. The 3M PC Club will accept many forms of payment, but we are not going to accept a Bitcoin. So you still need that. Now, yeah, why not? I don't know. That seems like, yeah.
One Bitcoin per membership.
Yeah. There you go. That would be fine.
You're not going to get no partial Bitcoin.
Let's see. This also infers that you need a bank, and I think I get into that later. But I'm really also not going to talk about money-to-money transfer between people that don't have banks. I'm told that's possible, but in this case, you need a bank. Okay, and then I saw this many times in the help files. Don't use these to pay for goods and services. I have a couple examples coming up. There's no buyer protection. There's buyer beware. So, yeah, I think I'm going to mention this a little bit later too. And well, maybe here it is. Here is the example. You use Venmo to buy something or sell something, and it's somehow Venmo gets in there, or the seller makes a complaint, they reverse the transaction, you're in trouble. So I guess this is the example here. You can read this as fast as I can talk about it. But the worst case would be the second bullet point. You accept the Venmo payment. Say you buy a $1,000 item from you sell something. They send you $1,000 in Venmo. Then they somehow reverse the payment, and at that point you have lost your item, and you didn't get paid for it. So, and they're basically saying, don't use this to buy merchandise from people you don't trust. While I was researching this, I found these 8 ways to transfer cash. Some of them I was aware of, some of them I've never heard of. Steam I've never heard of. I only use Venmo and Zelle, but these are all the ways that I'm told you could transfer cash. Yes?
Venmo is actually part of
PayPal. I'll get into that. Yeah. Yeah, there's a relationship between Venmo and PayPal. Okay, here we go. On that same point. Is PayPal and Venmo, are they the same thing? No, they're not, but Venmo is owned by PayPal. So PayPal's been around, what, 10 years at least? Something like that, right? Later on I'll ask you how many have a PayPal account. And I get 3M dues from about 20% of you. That's nice. Even though there's 8 of them, I'm only going to talk about 2 of them, just because that's enough. Here's my comparison between Venmo and PayPal. PayPal is buy stuff. I use PayPal to buy stuff on Amazon and eBay, or my credit card. Those people I don't trust. I hope I get the good that I'm buying, but if I don't, then I take up my case with PayPal. I'm not sure exactly how that would work, but whereas Venmo and Zelle, it's just cash transfer. I'm only transferring cash. I'm not expecting to get something other than pay for my restaurant bill. So that is a difference that I see between PayPal and Venmo. Okay, questions for you to answer. How many digital wallets do you need or want? So there's 8 of them. Should I set up all 8? Well, it's a rhetorical question. Probably not. That's silly, right? 8 would be way too many. Fewer are better, and 1 is enough. 1 is good, though, versus 0. And then the question that logically follows is, which one should you do? Venmo, Zelle, or one of those other 8 that I listed? That one I'm going to say you get to decide. I can't tell you which one to use. I'm not even going to make a recommendation today, other than I use both of them. So that both videos that I showed you were from Zelle, simply because they had excellent production values. But I have used Venmo far more than Zelle. But logically, you're going to pick the one that works best for you. And here we go. I'm going to ask for some audience participation, because I wanted to find out 80% of all cash transfers are Venmo, and 20% are Zelle, and 2% are etc. I didn't find that. So I'm going to ask this fine audience to raise your hand if you in fact have a PayPal account. Just a PayPal account, raise your hand. So I'm seeing half the audience at least. And so how many here haven't used Venmo? Raise your hand. So 3. Have it and used it. So 3 people here have used Venmo. How about anybody here has Zelle? So, oh my goodness, I see 5 hands. Good for you. And then question 4, how many of you have any of these others? Apple Pay Cash, Facebook, and Google Wallet, and Steam. Raise your hand if you've got any of those. Okay, I see good old just Tom. And then the last one is, how many do, when you're at US Bank Stadium and want to buy your beer, use Tap to Pay with your iPhone or Android? So I see 3 people doing that. Okay. So interesting. So I think I saw more Zelle than Venmo. And then we're all kind of getting caught up with the Tap to Pay. That maybe will come later, but I do see it. Others using it. Okay. And then which one should you do? And here's my. You can read that again faster than I can read it. I'm going to talk about history in a little bit. Venmo's been around longer than Zelle, so my sense is that more people are using Venmo than Zelle. The audio that you heard said 85 million people have access to Zelle through their bank, but that doesn't mean that there are 85 million people are using it. They're not. Yeah. Millennials use Venmo because it's more social. Boomers, such as us, will use or choose Zelle because it's tied to their bank. So that's part of the reasons that you might pick. And then I'll say a few other factors in this presentation. Just end there. Huh? Okay. Why am I doing this talk? I had not heard of either of them prior to last year. So I'm a neophyte when it comes to cash transfer. But my dear son in September of last year said, I would like you to send me a bunch of money. And I agreed. And so I wrote him a check. He says, Dad, this check is worthless in South Africa. They don't take checks here. Apparently they had bad luck with him. But anyway, he is a USA citizen, even though he happens to live in South Africa. And he said, you should use Venmo. And so I did, and it worked fine. I was able to transfer a substantial amount of money to him over a period of like 6 weeks.
What's the maximum you could transfer?
I'll get into that. That's coming. And then, so I was familiar with Venmo, but then while I was collecting dues, I got an email from somebody here who will remain nameless because I've forgotten their names, but it may be one of you who sent me an email that says, here's my $8 with Zelle. I scratched my head. Zelle? What's that? But then I realized, yes, it is also cash transfer through Wells Fargo or any other bank. And so I also set up a Zelle account. And so here's then where we're, the 3M club, we're trying to keep up with the times. The email that I send says you got to pay up, and you got 5 ways to give me money. So there are now 5 ways. 5 ways. You can do your conventional PayPal account. That's where most people are doing electronically, but you can now use Venmo to my Venmo name, which I list in the email. You can use Zelle to my email address, which I list. But then finally you can bring cash or check or mail it. So keeping up with the times using modern technology, we offer those 5 ways to collect money. So you'll see that from me. Okay, last for my qualifications, I said I would do a presentation. Somebody should do a presentation on this. And they said, why don't you? I read the online help. There's extensive online help from Venmo. Wells Fargo doesn't have much. I subsequently learned that Zelle has lots of online help. I watched a few YouTube videos, read the Wikipedia articles, and here I am. So, okay. So those are my complete qualifications, skimpy as they may be. Hey, I thought it would be fun to read a little bit about history and which banks participate. You can read that again. 2 clever people sometime prior to 2010 said we should be able to transfer cash with our smartphone. The first date that I read was May 2010. Braintree, I'm vaguely familiar with Braintree, only vaguely. They acquired the company in 2012, and then finally in 2013, PayPal bought Venmo. And so it's kind of strange. Why would PayPal buy Venmo? Why not just improve PayPal? But apparently PayPal thought Venmo was onto something. And I don't know exactly what they paid for the Venmo part of it, but Venmo is a wholly owned part of PayPal. And then which banks participate with Venmo? All of them and none of them. Not specific to any bank. Any bank will work. But I also thought I didn't expect that any bank would help you if you had a Venmo issue. Venmo is simply accessing funds in your bank account, and the bank would just said, well, we didn't do that. So that's one slight negative of Venmo. And then here's the Zelle history. And it's recent. Wow. Released in September of last year, so it's not even a year old. So good for us. We're learning all about the latest technology. But that means Venmo's got a multiple year start. Bullet point 2 there, you can see that it's a wholly owned part of those about half a dozen banks, including U.S. Bank and Wells Fargo. They own Zelle. And so basically they want Wells Fargo wants you to use Zelle. I guess, and how these companies make money, Zelle or Venmo, I don't know. Maybe somebody smarter than me can figure that out. But anyway, the bank wants you to use Zelle. And then Wikipedia had listed all the participating banks. So does Zelle.com. The one negative is the big banks in the Twin Cities, U.S. Bank and Wells Fargo, were the only 2 that I saw. The 3M Credit Union, they don't directly participate in Zelle. Now you can use Zelle with a 3M Credit Union, but they're not directly participating. Okay, so that's a long introduction. And now I'll go slightly faster, I guess, because it's almost noon. Okay, what does it take to use Venmo and Zelle? 5 things. A smartphone. Most often you'll use your smartphone, but you can use a computer or a tablet. You use a smartphone app, you'll see mine. You need a cell phone number, a bank account, and an email address. Now, probably you only need 4 of these. You can probably get by without your email if you have a cell phone. But
Venmo is not going to let you do it on the
Got it. I got it covered. So anyway, these are basically the 5 things. You need to tell this information about yourself. Okay, smartphone apps. For Venmo, it's simple. You just use their app and you'll see a screenshot coming up real quick. For Zelle is a 2-part answer. If your bank participates with Zelle, such as Wells Fargo, you just use the Wells Fargo app. And that's what I do. And if your bank does not participate with Zelle, then use the Zelle app. And yes, to confirm, you can use Zelle even if your bank does not directly participate. You just use the Zelle app. But I use Wells Fargo, so I just use the Wells Fargo app, not the Zelle app. Okay, so there are my two cash transfer apps, Venmo and Wells Fargo. You will not see a Zelle app, no Zelle app there, because I don't need it. Okay, it was been mentioned. For reasons that I don't completely understand, Venmo is phasing out functionality on the web browser. They want you to use your smartphone. Maybe afterwards you can tell me why that is so, but this is what their web page says. We are starting to discontinue the ability to use your web browser to transfer cash. They want you to use your smartphone. Zelle, however, works fine on both. They both work on the web browser and the smartphone now, but Venmo has said this. Why would they do that anyway? I don't know. Seems kind of bizarre. I thought everything you could, well, anyway, I won't go there. Okay, these are USA only, and I need to make that clear. Probably doesn't affect people in this room. We're all in USA. But if you cannot then transfer money to Russia or Nigeria. And I like that feature. I do not want the people in Russia to have access to my bank account. And so they can't. I talked to my son. If I wanted to do some international money transfer, how would I do it? He gave the 3 suggestions here. But basically my point is, this is USA. This will work fine for everybody in this room. But if you are trying to transfer money to Africa, then you probably have to find something else. Okay, that completes part 2. I knew part 1 would be a little longer, then part 2 would be quicker. How to set them up. So I'm just going to show a series of screenshots from my smartphone, obscured where they needed to be obscured. So first series of screenshots from Wells Fargo. This is when I press my Wells Fargo app, this is what comes up. Obviously it's asking me for my Wells Fargo username and password. I don't know about Wells Fargo. I'm not sure about Wells Fargo Wallet. I'm not going to talk about that. I haven't used it. But anyway. So, but here's, and then you go to the menu and you select transfer and pay. And then you select send money with Zelle. So there I got into it. Once you do that, you come to this main screen. You can send money, which is probably the most common. You can request money. I presume that's less common, but you can do both. Requested, of course, to be up to the person that accepts it to send you money. Okay. Other screens, these are all from my smartphone. Activity is shown on my smartphone. It shows who I sent it to, what for, how much I sent it, how much I sent. By the way, this is only my activity for Zelle. It does not show anybody else's activity. And you would ask, why would you want to see anybody else's activity? Venmo does, which is bizarre. It shows the people that I routinely send money to. One of the questions you'll immediately have is, I want to make sure I send money to the right person. I don't want to send it to Don Johnson, some other Don Johnson. I want to make sure I send it to the right Donald Johnson. But if you have your friends here, you pick them there. And here it shows some of the information. It shows my Wells Fargo account number. It shows my mobile phone number. And it shows my email address. So if it wasn't obvious, to Wells Fargo knew this stuff about me. Well, maybe they didn't know my mobile phone. But anyway, to use Zelle, I got to tell Wells Fargo and Zelle this information. By the way, I don't have a Zelle username. Venmo does have one. Okay, and then there's some help at the Wells Fargo site about Zelle, but not as much as there will be at zellepay.com. And then here's all the common questions that you might want to ask about Zelle right at Wells Fargo. And covers the normal things that you would want to know. Let's see. Oh, and then how to actually send money. This was a semi-funny story. So I was trying to do a test here. So I picked the person to send money to. I picked $5. I can send anywhere between $1 and actually I can spend. I think it can be $4,000. I get into that later. But typically you're going to do, dozens of dollars. And then I said sent, but my internet went down. So I don't have a screenshot showing a successful transfer with Zelle. I simply said my internet failed. So it requires cell service. So no, wait a minute. This was internet. Huh? I'm surprised it didn't work. I surely had cell service. I must have been on Wi-Fi. I was on Wi-Fi. That's why it failed. It would have worked just if I had done cell service. Anyway, you normally get a nice notice stating that it worked. Both of these products, in my opinion, give you excellent notification. Somebody sent me money with Zelle, so I get an email stating that they did so. Or I'll get text messages. All of these, in my opinion, give you excellent notification. Okay, that's the end of my slides for Zelle. Now here's a few slides for Venmo. Venmo has this nice slide, security edition. I still have a username and password. Surely I do. But this one also requires me to enter a PIN. It doesn't require me, but it can be an option. So I have a PIN. So if I lose my smartphone, they need to know this PIN. Okay, similar slides basically here for Venmo as I showed you with Zelle. But here's an interesting difference. Venmo can show me my activity, my friend's activity, and believe it or not, public activity. My activity has more details, including the amount of money. Here, this might be slight out of order, but to pay somebody in Venmo, it's really simple. There's just really one screen. You pick the person, you pick the amount of money, what for, and you say send or pay. So to pay in Venmo is real straightforward. But back to activity, I can see my friend's activity, so I can see that my dear son paid somebody else for website development. Which is a little bizarre. Didn't tell me how much he paid though, because he's just my friend, not me. And then, what happened to public? Did I miss a slide? It would appear, I'm sorry, but I jumped from 3 to 5. I'm not sure about that. I was expecting my public activity. Maybe that comes later. Anyway, I'm just going to go with my slides here. This shows similar information. Shows that I have a balance in Venmo. Shows that I can transfer my balance to my bank, except I have no money in my Venmo balance. And then all the other things that I can do with Venmo. Yeah, somehow I missed public activity. I don't know what happened to that slide. Scan code. This is another 3MPC Club member showed me this. This is very useful. So I have a scan code. I can see my code. So to eliminate all confusion about who are you the right, what's your Venmo name, I can show my scan, I can bring up my scan code. They can view my scan code, and then immediately we become friends. So a really nice way. You don't even ask them, what's your name, what's your phone number, what's your email. You don't need any of that. If you just bring your code, it does all that for you. Okay, settings main menu, can do all these things. Similar information, but here you can briefly see that I have a Venmo username. So I had to come up with it. Either they came up with it or I came up with it. I have a Venmo username, Zelle does not. This is a gotcha. Venmo is public by default. And again, I'm missing that screen showing you that public activity apparently. But you would want to go in here for sure, and most of us would want to send it to private. But if you want to, you can make all your transactions public and see everybody else's stuff too. Why would you want to do that? Only if you were a millennial, I think.
It is entertaining to read the reasons for cash transfers and such.
Okay, that's true.
My daughter was showing me how to set this up.
Okay. All right.
And I said, why would you do that? And they said, right home from the bar because I couldn't find my keys.
Exactly, yeah.
Or half a package of popcorn. You know.
So those Venmo people, they're not idiots. They made this very social by default. And I think they're way ahead of Zelle as far as market share. I didn't hear that comment, but anyway.
Does that give you more trust then, if you can see what they're doing and you know that they're interacting with other people like that?
Does it?
You can see that they have had transactions and it sounds like it works for them.
As far as the public, you mean?
Well, I use it because I am sending my daughter rent money. She's in school, so I send her the rent money, and then I can track and make sure she's actually paying her rent. And she also pays it through Venmo.
But the question is, if you set it to private, you would know who you're sending money and getting money from. But do you really want to know what the general public is doing, and do you want the general public to know what you're doing? I don't. So, it's probably a generational thing. If you're younger than us, then you probably fine with public. And you can do it public with Venmo. You can't with Zelle. Okay, I will repeat myself multiple times to say that notifications are real good in these products. If something is going on, I'm going to know it. Text or email. So I will know what's going on. If somebody tries to pull a fast one on me, I will know it. Now, you may debate what can you do about it, but at least I'll know about it. Okay, more social aspects of Venmo. You can import all your Facebook friends and your phone contacts, and I believe this is true if they're using Venmo, or if they sign up for Venmo. If they sign up for if they already have, then they will show up as your Venmo friends. You can't do this with Zelle. So it's a nice feature. I have done my phone contacts, but I've not done my Facebook friends.
What's an example of someone pulling a fast one on you?
I'll come to that later. Security, we'll get into a little bit, we'll talk about security a little bit now and later. Venmo remembers your devices. I believe Zelle does too. Venmo tells you what you have used. So it knows my smartphone name and when I used it, and it knows my computer. And since I've used it once, it will not challenge me for additional security, except other than my PIN. So multi-factor authentication, I'll talk about that later. Okay, backup payments. Zelle, by the way, I believe is 100% your bank account, but Venmo allows you to use your bank account or a credit card. And I believe all of them use, Zelle also, Venmo can also use your debit card as well as your credit card. I'll talk about fees, and I have to move along here. I'll talk about fees a little bit later. Basically, after this presentation, I'm going to get rid of my credit card from here because I don't ever intend to use my credit card. I just wanted to show you that it is possible to use your credit card.
Do you recommend at a bank having a special account with money is taken out rather than checking, or maybe your main savings account?
No, I think you can only use. I talk about that later too. Ask me later if I don't cover your question. There is an issue with that. Venmo has excellent help, and ZellePay.com has good help too. So, okay, that completes the third and fifth item. Now, things you should know, and I'm going to talk about these things here. You can read what they are, so I'll go through them. Fees. What's it going to cost me to use this? Zelle? Simple answer is free. You have to use your bank account as far as I know. Venmo is free if you use your bank account, but 3% if you use your credit card. That's why I'm going to get rid of my credit card. I'm happy, and I wanted to transfer this money to my dear son, and I didn't want to pay any fees for it, and I didn't. Receiving is free both ways. Yeah.
credit card to pay a store or something, there's still fee for you.
Could be, yeah. Store, you know what, lots of things I'm not covering here. Even though I'm covering lots of things, I'm not covering really how to use Venmo to pay for goods and services. They've already said don't do it, except their website also says here's how to do it if you want to do it. So it'll be a while before I use Venmo to pay for my goods and services. Okay, so that's as far as fees. It's basically it's free if you use your bank and 3% if you use your credit card, except with if you use paying somebody. And then limits. How much can you send? And here they are. Everybody starts with, why do they do 99.99? Why didn't they just say $300? I don't know. There must have been some reason. But anyway, everybody starts out with $300, but you can right away go to $3,000 per week once you enter your Social Security number. And logically you would, and assuming if you want to transfer that much money. But if you don't, I guess if you want to keep it to a small amount of money, then don't enter your Social Security number. And then Zelle has a multiple part answer. Depends on your bank. And I couldn't find the direct answer in the Wells Fargo, but from Wikipedia, there seemed to be $2,500 per day and $4,000 per month. So that's still a lot of money, even for us here. Certainly plenty to pay for pizza and rent. I'm glad that there is an upper limit. I'm glad it's not $100,000. I don't want to transfer $100,000. I'll find some other way to do that, if I ever do that, which I've never done. Unless you buy a house, I guess. Okay, transfer speed. It depends. How's that for a vague answer? I thought, though, it seems like money is removed fast and replenished slowly, like any banking transaction. The Zelle video said it can be minutes. So if the sender and receiver both have an established relationship with Zelle, it can be really fast, minutes. I think it's true with Venmo also, but I'm not sure. Here's where I'm not sure about some of the things I'm saying. But my bottom point, though, is if you're using it among friends, who cares? My friend, if you're getting rent payment, you're going to give them 2 or 3 days leeway anyway. So, but if you're not trying to make a you're not trying to make a mortgage payment. So anyway, if you're time constrained, then maybe I wouldn't use these. Okay, I alluded to this already, but it's a problem. You want to make sure you're paying the right person. So common sense says pay somebody $1 or $10 first before you pay them $2,500. If I send $10 to the wrong person, well, no big deal. But a large amount to the wrong person could be a big deal. You will know the contact information from the people that you trust, or you can get it. I've already alluded to importing friends. Also talked about the Venmo scan code. Basically, start out with a small amount and then work up, is my recommendation. But both of these says, gosh, I paid the wrong person, what do I do? And so if you pay the wrong person, and it could conceivably happen, except it's your fault because you didn't send them the $10 first, please ask them if they would kindly send your money back. If they don't, contact Venmo, potentially contact Wells Fargo, your bank. They say, though, we cannot cancel the payment for you. We might be able to help you, but we might not. So be careful. Okay, alluded to this already. Venmo has a balance. PayPal has a balance too. You have a PayPal balance. Zelle does not, and that's good. So for Venmo, you need to transfer occasionally. You would need to transfer your money from Venmo to your bank balance, to your bank. But Zelle, you wouldn't do that. Okay, it was alluded to. There could be a problem here with, and there is a requirement: one user to one bank account. So my dear wife and I have a joint bank account, and so I set up Zelle and Venmo first. And there's one, let's see, I guess you can have multiple smartphones per bank account, but there can be a problem where there's a limit. There's a one-to-one relationship mostly for these things. There's only one Venmo username per bank account. So if you think you can't have 2 or 3 people with Venmo going to the same bank account. That's as far as I understand. So that's you got to be careful of that. I guess there's workarounds to that, but you can't have 6 people going to Venmo to one bank account, to my knowledge.
Yeah, that's right. I have Venmo. I can set it to different bank accounts.
True. You're true. You can have multiple bank accounts. I guess what I'm saying is, what happens if 2 people want to use the same one bank account? That can be a problem. Or 3 people. What if they want to use the same one bank? That can be a problem. I'm talking generally 2. You got married couple, husband and wife. Both want to use Venmo. There's a problem. First one gets there beats their spouse, from what I can tell. So, and there might be a workaround. Anyway, just be aware of that. Okay, their help does exist. Venmo, so you can contact these people by phone, by email. The YouTube video says Venmo help was not responsive, but my son did have some trouble. He didn't remember his password. He lost his USA phone number, and he couldn't get into his Venmo account. But he called them, and they got him reconnected right away. So help does exist. Okay, and then lastly, security. So I'm going to talk about these things. Some of these I've already repeated, but here we go. And you've heard me say this trust thing. Use these with people that you trust. If something goes wrong, you know where those people live, and you go find them and say, "What's up with that?" I want my something. Yeah.
Send Guido.
Yeah. So Guido's going to come over and fix this. Okay, here's the scam that I alluded to, and I will read this sort of. But I got this from YouTube, and here's what happened: a stranger sent, I'll just say me, $3,000, and then he came to my place of employment. Because he figured out where I worked and says, I made a mistake. I sent you $3,000 by mistake. Would you please send it back to me? So I sent him $3,000 back. But then what he did, how he did this, I don't know, but he canceled his Venmo payment to me. And then then he disappears. Turns out I didn't get his name and phone number, and then I couldn't cancel mine. So in that case, I'd be out $3,000. This is based on a YouTube video that I watched. I presume it's true. I guess if anybody sent you $3,000, I'd be really careful and maybe at that point call Venmo and say, hey, what's up with this? So, yeah, $2,999. So,
but you are sending $3,000 that was in the account that you haven't put in there yourself. So
no, you see in that case.
No, it's tied to your bank account.
Well, it's true, but in theory, he was sent
you $3,000. You look at your bank account and it has $3,000.
Oh well,
but it's like a bank
pending.
check. It's like a check that you get from somebody. Your bank will take it in, it'll show up on your register, but it isn't cleared yet.
Yeah, you wait 2 or 3 days. You're not going to send it right away.
Well, no, this guy comes to your place right away. You think you got the money and you sent it back, and you're out the money. Goodbye, bye.
So if somebody sent me $3,000 that I didn't know,
Next Friday.
yeah,
That's what I would do.
I would
They'll
wait.
come back here to my work.
Yeah. So be careful. So how often does this happen? I don't think very often.
With your trusted friend, and that's why they say trusted friends, because anybody can cancel at any time, or it could be a phony bank account.
Yeah. Although Venmo claims you can't cancel, but then the other place it says they can cancel. So I don't know what's up with that. So, but
For example, to keep in mind also, if you accidentally send it to somebody and
Yeah.
then you go and request that money back,
Yeah.
then probably be very suspicious.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, sure, buddy. Okay, multi-factor authentication. I did mention this. I never was able to show you my Venmo public slide. Zelle is always private. Lots of notices of activity. Both use this multi-factor authentication. So when my son lost his USA smartphone, as well as his Venmo password, he couldn't get back in with just his laptop because they were sending him a new security code to his smartphone, which he didn't have. So I think it's a good system. Again, that's a multi-factor authentication. Even though you're using your computer, it's going to send your authorization codes to another device which they believe you have. So it's good that way. It depends on more than just a user name and password on one device. And then Wikipedia said Venmo, and you can read this again quicker than I can. Venmo got, because I'm close to the end of my slides, Venmo got dinged on their insufficient security. This is relatively recent, February of this year. Gosh. They settled with Venmo. They said, you do not have bank-grade security. And also they dinged them about misleading consumers with their privacy transactions, because I believe privacy is public by default. You have to change it to private. I'm not positive about that. But you have to make sure. This was in Wikipedia, said that. Yeah. So your Venmo account says, please send money. Okay, my thinking is that the biggest threat to losing my money is losing my smartphone. If they lose and if I haven't secured it now, so we've so hopefully secured our devices well enough, but I don't know how well that can be broken. I'm not clever enough to break my security, but maybe other smarter people can. But if they can break my security, then they're me. You have this, you're me. So that's a problem. So logically, if you lose your smartphone, then you got to, like you losing your wallet, then you got to call Zelle or Venmo and say, please freeze my account, please. So. And then what about those Russians? Personally, yes.
One comment about you were wondering why they're getting rid of the browser app. And
yeah.
The thing that came to my mind was if you're at a hotel, you go in, you get to log off, the next person comes up. They wake you up.
And that cannot happen at your smartphone, or?
Well, I think at your smartphone it's possible, but I would be more.
Okay.
I don't know if that's the reason or not, but just
okay. Possible. I was surprised, but they must have their reasons. And one reason I suspect is the smartphone is being used 95% of the time compared to the browser. So. Okay, should we worry about the Russians? In my opinion, is no. Except, of course, they've been in the news a lot, but can they hack into my Venmo and Zelle account and take my money? Possibly, but you would hope Wells Fargo has good security to prevent that. At least I hope so. And then here's my overall opinion. Zelle is more secure than Venmo. The banks produced it. We hope the banks they don't want complaints from their customers. And Venmo, as mentioned, has gotten dinged by the FDIC already. Okay, that completes my presentation. These are the references that I used. Now, questions?
Most of the apps that I have on my phone, I can access only with my fingerprint.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, and we've tested it, it's just like, if my fingerprint's not on it, I don't know.
And that's the actual app has to have your fingerprint?
And I go through like LifeLock or anything like that, and I have to go through that. So it's like, if somebody does get my phone,
okay.
I don't know what they can actually do. They can bypass that because they're going to get to an app and it's going to say.
Is this another app that you loaded on your phone to?
This is on Apple.
Apple.
This is on Android.
Android too?
I got it on Android.
Is that an
I
app?
can log into my Wells Fargo with my fingerprint.
Yeah.
Now,
okay.
the real deal is how secure is your fingerprint? simply because it really is not as secure as most people assume. I could take it off of a coffee cup and use Scotch masking tape and get the fingerprint, and with some manipulation, it can go from the phone. Now, most people aren't going to go through that trouble and stuff like that, but you do run into potential issues with that, and that's where having additional security for some of the things makes sense. But in the end, it ends up being how liable are you if your phone gets stolen, if you contact your bank as soon as possible, or credit card, then all of a sudden your liability isn't there.
You should be able to just go online also and cancel.
Right. Yeah.
My fingerprint doesn't want to work. And it can't have stain on it from paint. I found that out this morning. No.
Any other questions about Venmo and Zelle? Have I sold you, or you're all going to open up your account? Maybe. Okay. I don't have anything further to say. Okay. All right.
And if you have your picnic or want to turn it in, you can turn it in to Jim there. Yeah, I mean, my personal opinion on these, you are seeing cash go away. So cash is, no longer needed. Authentication, your phone is becoming your authentication, so it makes sense to use that as your wallet and to pay things and stuff like that. Now, I use some of these different services, and each service does have its strengths and weaknesses. What Paul was talking about is great for paying friends, splitting bills. You're in the bar and the tab comes, and instead of everybody getting separate tabs and stuff like that, you can just transfer and do stuff that way. But as far as paying in a store, that's where some of these other methods are still going to be around because those are more secure. When you talk about Android Pay and Apple Pay and stuff like that, authentication is a higher level authentication to the phone and what's going on, and can't be masked and impersonated by another phone or by another individual. So that if you go over to Europe, it's much more used over there than it is in the United States. A lot of businesses don't have the touch to pay, and the phones that come out, especially the Android phones and that, not that many models have the near field recognition, which is needed to do the Android Pay, the tap and pay. Okay, well, we'll see you at the picnic. Otherwise, the next general meeting is in August. Yep.
The public thing, and it showed your code. Could someone look at the form? Take a look at that.